Good morning, friends. I believe I had been receiving some questions related to assignment 1. So I thought I will provide you this tutorial which may be helpful to you to complete the assignment 1, part 1. Let's see. I'm going to explain you how to make design decisions to model your ER diagram. The assignment 1, homework 1 which is shared to you, I have this document open here. You are supposed to develop a social networking. This case study talks about developing a social networking site, and where you are given the requirement description. And for each of these requirements, you are supposed to model the ER diagrams. So let's take an example. We are going to talk about the point number 1. You can see here the point number 1 says that members may have only one account with social networking site. Members will have basic personal information such as email ID, name, age, and optional contact information, and so on. Now, there are a couple of design decisions which you need to make now. Point number 1, how to identify entities, how to identify attributes, how to identify relationships between the entities, and various other design decisions which we had talked in class. So you are going to use those ER notations as discussed in the class, and you are going to model your ER diagram for this particular requirement. So my first tip number 1, identify the nouns. And noun, a person, place, and a thing. We know that a noun means a person, place, and a thing. So identify the nouns in your requirement paragraph and highlight it, because these nouns are going to be modeled as entity sets, right? So as for example, members in my para 1, my requirement 1, members is a noun, and kind of we are going to treat it as an entity set. We're going to model it as an entity set, right? So let's do that thing first. We are going to use Word, and you can use any other related tool which supports our notation, and or you can even draw on paper as I suggested to you. I'm going to add this entity set box, and I'm going to add the text, so members. So let's see, we have members entity set modeled, correct? Next thing, we can read here that members will be having basic personal information such as email ID, name, and age. Email identifier. Now this is going to be the unique identifier in order to identify a member entity from the members entity set. Thus, each member entity is going to have only one email identifier. Member is going to have one name and always one birth date, right? So whenever we know that this identifier, name and age, is only going to be a single value, so these aspects are going to be modeled as attributes of the member entity, right? So let's kind of model this as attributes. I'm going to insert that and the corresponding notation I'm using for attribute as discussed in class, and I'm going to call this as my identifier, my email ID. And as this is going to be the primary key field, right, we need to use the notation and kind of underline it, and right, so this is kind of treated as a identifier, and I'm going to connect this attribute with the entity set, right? Same thing, we can do the same thing for uh, the remaining two attributes, name and birth date, right? We don't model age most of the time because age is normally computed, and hence we should model birth date as an attribute. We should record birth date, and age can always be computed from it. So this is I'm modeling these three attributes, and it's not going to be underlined, name and birth date, correct? So once this is done, we are going to just link it with the entity set paste, and I think we are ready with the entity set. Members is an entity set and it has three attributes: email ID, name, and birth date. We have modeled this from our assignment. So now I think these aspects are already modeled. Members will have basic personal information such as email ID, name, and age. Right? Now let's look further. It also says the members has optional contact information such as address, phone number, email address related to their home and job. It means members can have many types of contact addresses, a home address, a home contact, a job contact, and can have multiple job contacts. So it means if I'm going to model contact address, contact phone number, and email address as single attribute for member entity set, then it means I can only store one address, one phone number, and one email address because these attributes are going to be single valued fields. So each member entity, if only has one address, one phone number, and one email address, then naturally you can model them as attributes. But here in our case, each member is going to have many contact addresses, right? So it is going to have many contacts, and each contact has address, phone number, and email address. And these contacts can be of multiple types like home and jobs. So hence, we cannot model this aspect. Rather, contact, we cannot model contact as a attribute of members. So this is a classic example where we model contacts as a entity set, and we kind of link address, phone number, and email address as attributes of contact. And contacts can be of two types, home and jobs, so that we can model this aspect as an attribute called contact type, right? So now my contacts is going to be an entity set, and I'm going to model four attributes: address, phone number, email address, and contact type, right? So let's kind of model this entity set as well. So I'm going to very quickly copy this diagrams so we can select the objects, home, we can select all the objects, and I'm going to kind of copy this and paste it here and kind of move it, paste it here, and kind of move it on this side. Okay, I'll do it again and paste it here, kind of move it in the side, and right, we have lots of space here, right? So let me again select this objects and kind of adjust it a little bit, right? So I'm going to add my contacts entity set. So I'll model contacts as entity set. Now I'm going to every contact has an address, has a phone number, and has email, right? So my address, I'm going to not make it a primary key right now. I'm going to decide it later on, right? So once we are done here, we kind of model two entity sets, and members and contacts both are having their own attributes, right? One more attribute we need to add for contacts is the contact type, because contact can be of two types, home and jobs. So home and jobs are the contact types, and we can mention this as the valid pool of values for contacts, right? So four attributes of contact, we are all ready. Now let's go back to the assignment and let's kind of look at the relationships between them. So if you can see here, verbs, tip number 2, verbs are normally modeled as relationships. Sometimes you need to identify the relationship from the paragraph, and in most of the cases verbs are kind of connecting to the entities. So these verbs can be identified and can be modeled as relationships between the entity sets. So if you read this para, so far we have done this. We have modeled two entity sets. Let me color them as red and contacts. Okay, and now we are going to model relationship. We know every member has 0 or more contacts. So let's model this aspect of the system. We want to model 0 and more contacts. So I'm going to put my relationship diamond here in between, and I'm going to say the relationship name members have one or more contacts, right? So let's link these relations, both the entities. Correct. By default, we know that this means many to many. Member, a member entity from the members entity set may have many contacts. So this relationship can be read in this manner, that one member in a members entity set may have one or more or many contacts. So now we say that it has to be optional. So that's why we are going to keep it as a partial participation and not a total participation. That's why we are using this solid line, a regular solid line. It's not dark, it's not bold. It means that members are participating in this relationship, right? It's a partial participation. It means there can exist many members in the members entity set which are not going to participate in this relationship. It means they are not going to have any contacts because it's optional, right? So we are just going to keep this as partial participation, and we are not going to make it bold because bold normally signifies that it's a total participation, right? So we are not going to make these lines or the relationship links as dark. So we are all set. Let's again cross check our work. We are already ready. Now, the one question may arise here is that members can have only one account with social networking site. So we are saying that each member is identified by an email ID, and we made it as a primary key, so every member can exist once only, right? So there can be only one member using that email ID. So it's kind of, we make it very clear here because email ID is the primary key, so there can no duplicate members can exist using the same email identifier. It means the member who is registered by using this email ID can only register once, and it means he's only having one account here. Now, one more thing here is contacts are always dependent on members because contacts cannot just exist standalone. It is dependent on members. Hence, there is a possibility of modeling this as a weak entity. I mean, this is my design decision. You can have a different viewpoint and you can always justify by writing your assumptions. So we are going to make this as dark, as bold, because we are going to model contacts as a dependent entity, and that's why we are going to make it bold. Why dependent entity? Because contact will is dependent upon members. Members exist, contact exists. When you delete the members, contacts has to be removed. Contacts does not stay into the system. So according to me, it's like a weak entity, and we can model it as a weak entity. As you are modeling this as a weak entity, we have to identify one of the attribute and model it as a partial key. I think address can be modeled as a partial key, and so we are going to underline address with a dotted line, and it becomes a partial key. So now together, this is a dependee, and this is the depending entity, and context is like depending upon members. So its parent has a primary key field email ID, and email ID and this identifier and the birth address, right? This address and the email identifier jointly uniquely identify a contact, right? So we can say a member's email ID and the address can uniquely identify one contact. So similarly, we have model contacts as a weak entity, and this is the participating relationship. So we are going to make it as bold also, as per our discussion in the class. And we know that all the contacts are totally participating in this relationship. It means we cannot find a single contact entity in the contact set which is not participating in this relationship. What does that mean? It means context cannot exist without member. And that's the reason we have to model this as a total participation, and we kind of make this as bold again. And this is done. Right? So I think this is one particular solution for the requirement one. Let's check out our requirement one again. I think we have covered all aspects. Members will have basic personal information, email ID, name and age. I think we have done that here. Then they have optional contact information such as address, phone number, email address related to home and jobs. We have kind of modeled that here. They have contacts, and they have address, phone number, email and contact types, and it is kind of a weak entity. And again, we have made this members participation in this relationship as partial. It means some members may exist who have no contacts, but all contacts will have a member, are related to a member. So this is this completely answers, this mostly answers all the points in our requirement one, and this is one possible solution of it, right? So kind of this is the complete solution, one possible solution for point one of assignment one. I kind of tagged everything here, all the notations which has been used so far has been shown in this diagram. Thank you for the patient listening. I think this tutorial, this supplementary material can assist you in order to complete the assignment one. Feel free to see this and complete the assignment. Thank you. If you have any more questions, you can always reach out to me by email or can meet me during office hours.